For Giannis Antetokounmpo ever. We are a day away from that potentially happening. We'll tell you what we mean and more on the Los Angeles bombshell, the story that keeps on churning. Coming up next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. My name's Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first stop of the day each and every day. Helps us immensely if you like and subscribe what you see here. If you're new as well, we're the only daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast all season long. Asterisk applied there. There's 5 days we took off during the summer, Camille, but daily coming at you with the latest on the Milwaukee Bucks. You can, of course, hear me throughout the season on the Bucks Radio Network. You can catch Camille on our Locked On NBA coverage, the Technical Foul podcast, and more places that I can count with NFL season here and her Packers work as well. There's a big story in the league that we're going to get to, and some of what Adam Silver had to say yesterday. But what we did not get to in yesterday's show, where not surprised with the viewpoint of a lot of Bucks fans in the comments as you took a look at the Raptors and vice versa, Camille, was what happened on Tuesday with Greece advancing now to the semifinals of EuroBasket. And I mean, the opportunity is there. It is now a 75% chance that Giannis is going to medal for the first time in his international career. You can say the seas have parted and things have opened up for Giannis, and we saw France go out. You saw Luka Doncic and Slovenia get eliminated as well. But it's now Greece versus Turkey on Friday. The winner advances to the gold medal game. The loser is still alive for a bronze. What a summer for Giannis.
Truly, truly. And this is so big, not just for Giannis, but for Greece when you think about the fact that Greece hasn't even been to the semifinals in EuroBasket for 16 years. Like that, 16 years since you've actually done this. And they won a bronze that year in 2009 back in Poland. So to know that it's been this long since they were at this stage and seeing Giannis be a real big driving force behind it is super cool. Like it's been mentioned too that in that game, Costas was really big, even though the numbers, like the raw numbers weren't flashy. The four blocks.
One number specifically, yeah.
The 4 blocks was the one that really stood out. And he got 3 of those really, really quickly too. So shout out to Greece. Like this is one of the things of the summer of having a Giannis on your team in the NBA and just following him throughout the offseason with the international play, watching Greece and really starting to cheer for that team as well. Just like, come on, Greece, how far can you actually go in this tournament? And seeing Giannis in this role, I love the clip I saw after the game when Giannis was firing up his teammates in the huddle saying like, yo, we haven't done it yet. There is still more to accomplish. Don't sleep. Don't sleep. We still have more to do. And seeing Giannis being that vocal leader, something that me and you have talked about a bit, but like those glimpses of Giannis in his next phase of a leader, those really stand out to me, especially when thinking about what his role is going to be for the Bucks this upcoming season with so many young guys around him.
I mean, it's an incredible summer for Giannis to be leading Greece to the cusp of a medal, as you mentioned, for the first time in 16 years. To do this with his family, too. I mean, that's nothing new there in terms of international play, but Kostas to come up with 4 block shots for Greece in the quarterfinal game. You're doing this with Kostas and Thanasis' teammates. Oh, by the way, Thanasis signs to rejoin the Bucks as well. So save for 2021, this is probably the best summer that Giannis has had. I'm not going to say ever. I don't know Giannis's inner workings of his life prior to basketball, but it's certainly up there. Do you know anybody that played on that 2009 Greek national team?
Not off the top of my head.
You'd recognize 2 names.
Who?
One of them is the obvious because up until was it the last go round a couple of years ago, he had been on the Greek national team. Nick Galathis, that many of us would see playing like, hey, is that same guy that played at Florida? It is. So he was on that 2009 Greek national team. And then the other name which I think will probably jog your memory, Camille. Costa Kufos, remember that? I think he was a Jazz first-round pick, big man.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we said big man. I do remember him very briefly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That was the last team that, in terms of known players at the NBA level, that medaled for Greece, and now it's Giannis that has the chance to do that for Greece in the next day here. So again, they beat Lithuania, 87-76. Oh, by the way, not to gloss over it either, is that's the other big takeaway from this summer is no surprise, but yeah, Giannis looks pretty good. 60% from the floor, once again, 65% on his twos, and just did everything. 4 steals in that game for Giannis. Only 2 assists, as those numbers have been down throughout this international competition, but his efficiency and everything else has been off the charts. I mean, I have not watched every single game outside of Greece, but I dare say Giannis has been the most dominant player throughout this tournament.
He has. I mean, even in that game that they had against Lithuania, like Giannis was knocking down some clutch free throws to help extend that lead for Greece down the stretch. And when I'm watching him in international play, of course, the first thing going through my mind is what a lot of Bucks fans are thinking, which is don't get hurt, be healthy, ball out, have fun
out there, Camille.
You got to, like, it's the first thought, like, just stay healthy, man. Go ahead, do what you got to do, but stay healthy. But seeing that and seeing also the attention that people are pointing to with his mid-range game in EuroBasket, it's kind of like, yeah, we saw this last year in the NBA. Like, it's really a developing shot for Giannis. He feels so much more comfortable with it. And seeing him get into that shot, especially with the FIBA rules too, knowing a little bit more physical, a little bit less space there to operate within, and still seeing him kind of get to his spots, lift up, go for those mid-range shots, in addition to him still putting pressure on the rim, in addition to seeing that leadership developing with him, in addition to Giannis knocking down clutch free throws when it matters for his team, which we've seen in Milwaukee as well. It's been one of those things when watching Greece and everything that's coming with it and how his game continues to develop, where one, I get excited to see him in the NBA season this upcoming year of like how much further can you push that mid-range game that you've been working on and people are really starting to pay attention to.
It's going to be a challenge too for Greece against in the semifinals, I should say, in this matchup against Turkey. There are basically 7 NBA players, or at one time NBA players, on this Turkish national team. We talked about Shane Larkin last time, who's taken Turkish residency and says he considers Turkey more of a home than the United States now. So you got Shane Larkin, Cedi Osman, who is a current NBA player. Furkan Korkmaz, I don't believe, is out there. I think he's been a free agent for over a year now, but I suppose, longtime 76er. Speaking of 76ers, Adem Bona is on the Turkish national team. Omer Yurtseven of the Miami Heat is on that team as well. And Onuralp Betim of the Chicago Bulls, I think he was with that team, is there. And, of course, Alperen Şengün, the big name.
Big dog, so, yeah.
And he had a big game against Poland in the quarterfinals. So that's going to be the matchup that gets the attention, Şengün versus Giannis. But tomorrow, Friday, at 1 p.m., I believe, Central Time, is when that matchup is going to be. And we'll see if Giannis can then lead Greece to the gold medal game, which would be Sunday. And, I mean, I do know, Camille, a bulk of our listening audience should have no prior obligations on Sunday afternoon for that gold medal game. So we will all be attentively watching and seeing if Giannis can do this and lead Greece into a medal for the first time in 16 years. There's a lot of news going on off the court that, as of this moment, it does not involve the Bucks. Well, I shouldn't say as of this moment. It doesn't involve the Bucks. It could impact the Bucks in all teams, though, as we have started to learn more and more of this story. And later in the show, there's the Board of Governors meeting yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
This was not discussed publicly at the Board of Governors meeting, this story we're going to touch on next. But there were some other interesting things that came out of the mouth of Adam Silver that you and I both have some thoughts on. So we'll dig into those 2 pieces of news when we return after this on today's Locked On Bucks. Time to talk to you about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy, because it's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Think about all those wild shots you've made on the course throughout this summer and hopefully into the fall. Maybe it was a fluke, maybe it was a calculated miracle, but you certainly needed the energy to do it, and that's where 5 Hour Energy Transfusion comes into play. Easy to store in the golf bag. I keep some in my backpack for every single Bucks broadcast as well. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course and chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com. Spell out the number 5, F-I-V-E-H-E, win.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2021. So, depending on what coast you live on, and I would assume the majority of our audience lives on the middle coast, you woke up this morning to the news that, hey, there's a part 2 to this report on Steve Ballmer and Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. Amin Al-Hassan, who was on part 1 of that, I believe it was yesterday, 2 days ago, also hinted, oh, by the way, Pablo recorded a second piece to this, not just the sit down with Mark Cuban. And then it comes out, and I think 2 a.m. Pacific time is when this episode was released. And in it, Camille, we'll catch all of you up on it who have not, if you haven't seen the details, and give you the cliff notes. But while we do that, is this the smoking gun?
Feels like it. It feels like it, to see that Dennis Wong, who is a co-owner in the Clippers, Steve Ballmer owns 99% of that ownership group. Dennis Wong owns that 1%. The two of them, Dennis and Steve, were college roommates.
Longtime boys.
Yeah, they've been cool for decades. We learned today that one of Kawhi's $1.75 million quote unquote no-show payments was running late. And then you see that Dennis Wong, Clippers co-owner, invested about $1.99 million into the team. And then 9 days later, Kawhi got paid, which, again, a lot of this feels like circumventional and whatnot. But like when you see the numbers and the dates and then line up, and it's like who's doing the investing and when the money's coming out, it feels like there's enough for the NBA to be like, hey, we got something here that does not feel right. We are going to do something about it, because even in, I think it's in the CBA or whichever document that the league is going here, it makes mention of the fact that they can prove things with circumstantial evidence. Like the NBA said, for us to punish you, we are not a court of law.
We
don't need to prove
there's a chance this happened. Yeah.
Yes, we just need enough to be like, it's too fishy. Here's some punishment.
So, not that Pablo Torre is hurting for the views and downloads, but I would encourage everyone to go watch or listen to both parts of this podcast. The cliff notes here, for those of you that are just waking up to finding this out and saying, what did I miss here? As you pointed out, there were quarterly payments. So the way that this was devised was the $28 million payment for a no-show job is a discussion in itself, but that's what Kawhi Leonard got. He was going to be paid $7 million a year over that 4-year contract, same that he had with the Clippers, which a lot of people have also pointed out that part, don't get lost with that. That's not uncommon. It makes a ton of sense. Like, you're not going to be a local rep or regional endorser for, somebody tied to the team you no longer play with. So that part makes sense. It's going to line up with your Clippers contract. And if you no longer play for the Clippers, this thing is void. But the way he was paid was quarterly. So $1.75 million every 3 months. That second payment, as you noted, was running late. And I, in the interest of avoiding any type of libel or litigation, I have some theories on how this may have all come out. But conveniently enough, a $1.99 million wire transfer comes in from, as you mentioned, the other Dennis, who has ties to Steve Ballmer, 1% owner in the Clippers. And 9 days later, Kawhi Leonard receives his next payment. It was also noted in this reporting that wire transfer came in while this, what is it, Aspiration? Is that the name of the then company? That money is coming in while they are also laying people off because they are going out of business and don't have any funds. So that, to me, is the more interesting thing. You cannot plead ignorance there. Like, anybody that's investing any type of money, even if you're saying, well, I know Steve chucked in $50 million and he's one of my good buddies and I know they're a partner of the Clippers. So, hey, Steve, what was that company? I want to get in on this too. By that point, December of 2022, there was enough out there for anybody connected to that organization to know the ship be sinking right now. Oh, by the way, Dennis Wong's daughter was employed by the company as well. So again, somebody that would know internally, people are being laid off. It doesn't seem good here. Like, we've all worked jobs, Camille, where I may not have a look at the books and know what's going on, but the general feeling and tone of the company of like a rough quarter that we had or a rough couple quarters. There's no pleading ignorance on this. There's just too much that's starting to line up. And the old phrase, if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. That's what we're starting to get into here. And I just go back to Mark Cuban jumping on with Pablo Torre, last week? So 2 weeks ago, was it, that the initial report came out? Then last week,
it's all been within a week
10
now,
days or so.
like.
10 days. And because then days later, Mark Cuban did a show with him. And Mark Cuban was adamant in his defense of Steve Ballmer. And the big thing was, basically, I don't think Steve Ballmer is this dumb.
It's quite an argument.
Well, at the risk of editorializing and straying too much off the beaten path here, Camille, I think that is certainly a feeling that a lot of people have carried with CEOs and rich people. Like, they know ways around it. Like, they're not going to be that dumb. I also think we've seen for about a decade now that who cares? If I got money, I can do what I want. Like, we can cover it up somehow. And Mark Cuban said in that interview with Pablo Torre, I don't think he did it. I don't think he's this dumb, yada, yada, yada. But if he did, it's over for him. It's done. Based on everything that I know, being a former owner, being in those board of governors meetings, it's done. I don't know how you can't look at this and say, I don't know that we can prove you circumvented the cap to the levels that it's easy to jump to the assumption that you did, but some type of circumvention went on here. And we think it's beyond the pale. We don't think this is the same old, like Howard Beck earlier in the week said. He talked to an anonymous team executive who would mention, like, yes, circumvention happens, not like this, because everybody is terrified. What happens if you get caught doing this, because of the Joe Smith example? And the reference that Howard Beck gave was, we just couldn't come together on about $150,000 of the contract. So this team set up a meeting with one of the team sponsors to get that player a $150 endorsement deal. That is circumvention. All you can do is set up a meeting or introduce the two parties. You can't divulge any financials or anything. That's circumvention. but it's not to these levels. So I think the feeling is, yes, circumvention exists, but no one's doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
And where that becomes important is where we'll pick things up after the break, Camille, in that I know we're jumping to conclusions here, but I frankly feel like we got a lot of data here to point to something happening. So what is the punishment? Like, we know what happened with the Timberwolves and Joe Smith, but the league is different and things are different now.
Mm-hmm.
What is a worthy punishment? So we'll get into that and some comments Adam Silver made that you and I both took issue with coming up after this. So I was talking about this morning, up bright and early at like 5 a.m., saw this come out, watched the whole thing, was talking about it with a few other people. And one question kept coming up. How do you punish them? Like, Steve Ballmer is one of the richest people in the world.
Yep.
And there are levels to what you can actually levy for a financial fine to teams in the CBA. So, like, even if you give the Clippers the richest fine in the history of the league, it's a drop in the bucket to Steve Ballmer. In the case of the Timberwolves, Glenn Taylor was barred from any team activities and running the team basically for a year. Kevin McHale was the general manager of the Timberwolves, was on an unpaid suspension for a year. The 5 draft picks that were lost. So there are those things that you could do. Financially, I mean, yes, it sucks to have to fork over that type of money. But
when you're worth billions.
Steve Ballmer didn't notice the $50 million that he chucked in here. And then the draft picks component is the interesting one to me, Camille, because I think you could make a case that draft pick punishment is more severe than anything the Clippers would face. Like, Joe Smith's contract was voided. He became a free agent, and it was also ruled he cannot re-sign with the Timberwolves. Like, we're not voiding the contract and then you're signing for the actual amount. Like, nope, your days in Minnesota are done. You could do that with Kawhi. I think some would argue, well, maybe that's helping the Clippers then, because you're getting Kawhi for 40 games a year. And at this point, is he that same guy? Like, free up that money. That's going to help him out. Other people have said, well, then undo the whole thing. And the trade and Paul George then going to the Clippers. You traded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Paul George. That was in 2019. Is there a reasonable expectation to say, well, if this happened in 2022, did something also happen in 2019? Especially with Bruce Arthur's reporting of, hey, when Kawhi was negotiating with the Raptors, similar requests were made by Uncle Dennis. Sure, but we don't have any of those links as of this moment. So there's no like, well, undo the trade and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is back with the Clippers. But the draft picks component, to me, is the most interesting part, because you and I have talked about this quite a bit this summer. This is a league that is no longer the league that we knew for the 2010s, really, where it was like super teams and just hoard all these types of assets in terms of good star players and building these expensive groups. Like, no, you at this point, you want cheap guys. It's like the NFL argument where, like, you want a rookie scale contract for your quarterback. You can do that and compete. You're in a good spot. You want to set up not exactly like, but similar to the Thunder, to the Pacers, where you've got your young guys on decent contracts. Maybe they're on their second max or the first max, but not hoarding these super contracts. And the way you do that is with draft picks, to either trade for people or to draft and develop those players. Clippers don't have many in terms of draft picks that are out there. I think they have 2 pick swaps that are owed. And similar to the Bucks, I'm trying to dig it up as we speak here, but I think they're in a similar position to the Bucks in that they don't really control their draft until 2030, somewhere around there. So what if we see the Kawhi contract voided, a significant financial, the max that you can give out to an organization, fine, given to the Clippers, and then, like, you don't control your draft until 2031, cool. 2031, 2032, 2033, 2030. Like, we're taking away those draft picks where the Clippers are looking out into, wow, we got a decade of nothing, and there's nothing we can do to get those back.
I agree with you on draft picks being the biggest form of punishment. And as you were saying that, I was just thinking, like, Adam Silver must feel a certain way about the Clippers. Like, he started his commish role, and you got to deal with the Clippers and Donald Sterling. That was like the first big Adam Silver thing that he had to deal with as a commissioner of the NBA. And now you fast forward here, which feels like 10 years later now at this point, and here you go with the Clippers again being a team that's really testing your G, Adam Silver, of, hey, you can see how all of this is laid out. Now, what will the punishment be if you find enough circumstantial evidence to punish the Clippers? And to your point, I think draft picks is the most crucial way that you can do that. The calls for like reversing the trade, I don't think that the Thunder should be punished, for the Clippers' misfortunes along the way. So like voiding Kawhi, sure, which if they did void Kawhi's contract, the friends, like, I would be really curious what that free agency looks like for Kawhi of like,
well,
what
here's the thing
after that.
Yeah. And I mean, there would certainly be a market for him, right? I mean, but if you have your contract voided at this point, and we're making a big leap here, let's just be clear. We're basing this off of part 2. It feels like something is going to happen, but we're making a big leap to already get to voiding the contract. But if you have your contract voided in mid-September,
weeks
the
before
cap
training
space
camp,
minimum contracts, like if you want to play this year, that's what you're signing for.
He might be like, I got enough aspiration money, I don't need to play. No, I'm joking. But it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, if that contract is voided, what does that do to the landscape of the NBA? Like, it's only, like you mentioned, a lot of minimums to throw out there. What happens there? So I'd be interested in seeing how that unfolds. But ultimately, everything that's coming out about the Clippers, like we heard Ballmer fiend, hey, I got scammed too. I didn't know anything about it. And this payment, if I remember correctly, didn't Pablo say the payment that Dennis Wong made, if you make a payment at that point, you would have gotten some financials before you made your investment?
Mm-hmm.
And in my prior life, before doing this,
and it was also marked as critical.
Right. Before doing this podcast thing full time, I worked at a local foundation. And due diligence is a big part of what you do. Like, you get all of this information and that you have to go over for you to still make an investment of almost $2 million, understanding the situation that company was in.
You're not getting this back. We're going under right now. That's cool. Here you go.
You might as well call it an investment at that point, because you're not going to get a return on that investment at all. So all of it feels really fishy to me. And I think something is going to happen to the Clippers. If I had to make a guess, something's going to happen to them.
Yeah. I mean, I just, one other person I was talking with this morning brought this up too, which this would be like, that's quite a leap. But like, we had the same conversation of like, how do you financially punish one of the richest men in the world, especially when you're capped at what you can do? The draft picks is something. It's not until 2030 that the Clippers control their first round picks. So if you just said, no, you don't control it until 2030, it's gone from 2030 until 2035. So you got nothing for the next decade. That would be something. The tricky part for me is like voiding the contract, right? So I think Howard Beck and others have talked about this too, that like you have to prove they took that much less than market value and how that hurt them. I'm just going to be clear. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I think there's a much more interesting thing to investigate in terms of taking significantly less than market value. But it wasn't significantly less than market value. It was less than market value. It wasn't the max that Kawhi got. Now I get he was coming off another, was it ACL, right? That was after the 2021 playoffs. He was dealing with an injury. But he was made whole with this no-show $48 million allegedly endorsement that he had. But the important part is, what else were the Clippers able to do by not giving Kawhi the max? That's where it gets tricky of like, if that's where we land, is it as simple as we void Kawhi's contract, or do you have to look back and say this triggered this, which triggered this, which triggered this? So all of a sudden, any deal signed after 2021 is void with the Clippers, and we're moving forward. Like, think about the mess that would create. And it was also proposed to me by someone. I mean, what if Adam Silver took a page out of like the college playbook of the past, where you'd think about things like the death penalty that were handed out and say, regardless of your record, Clippers, you are not eligible for postseason for the next 3 years.
You could bring the hammer down in a lot of different ways. But again, the draft picks is a big one. If you take away postseason eligibility as well, especially this season, like this season going for the Clippers feels like one of those ones where they're really rallying all the horses for one more final push of like, hey, we can really do this year. Like, we know we're an older team, but we just want to get to that championship this year. And the All-Star game is at Intuit this upcoming year. So it's all of these things happening with this team where it's like, it's 9/11 right now as we record this. Training camp opens up in a few weeks.
First of all, Camille, why not just say September 11th in that content? Like, why do you have to start with it's 9/11?
That's the way my brain registers when I see the dates. It's the dates.
It's the 11th of September as we record.
But it's the timing of it all too, where the season is right around the corner. So any punishment that you do levy is going, it would already cause the situation to be like, okay, it's topsy-turvy. How do we navigate out of this? But the timing of it to happen right before you're really ramping up training camp, like, it's going to be chaos.
Long story short, I just feel bad for our guy. And I welcome you back with open arms. If Brook Lopez wants to return to Milwaukee, we can void that contract. You can back up Miles Turner. We'll do business that way. But yeah, I mean, look, I just, a lot of Clippers talk on a Locked On Bucks show. I get that, but this is a huge story.
It's an NBA story.
And there are going to be ripple effects. Like, there are going to be more people saying, hey, what about that? And that's the dangerous part is, now let's, become Reddit detectives and examine every contract that was signed. And was this below market value? And let's start to look for, this player endorsed this, right? Did he ever do X, Y, or Z? But like, yeah, I think it's kind of like, to an extent, cheating in college back in the day too, where it's like, it happens, but I don't know if it happens like this, like widespread. And that's kind of the viewpoint across the league is cap circumvention happens. Like, these guys, you think about the richest businessmen in the world, because this is no longer the family owned business. This is what you have. The 1%ers that are owning these businesses, they find ways to make money and to do things like this. So it should be no surprise that trickles into your front office to figure out ways to get around the salary cap. And it's also funny that I've had a few people talk to me whenever I would talk about the CBA with some of the few connections that I have of like, well, it always takes like 2 years for front offices to figure out the inner workings and things like that of how they would word it, which like you just see like, oh, so like this, okay, got it. That's what you mean by that. So yeah, I mean, I don't think this is going to be solved anytime soon. I think this is going to drag. And I do think we've seen enough that there is going to be a punishment that's handed down here. It's just how severe. Now, if it was David Stern that was in charge,
it's over for the Clippers if it was Stern.
This is a severe punishment. Adam Silver, we haven't seen that as much. And be very careful about how I approach this, Camille, as somebody that collects a source of income from a team that is governed by Adam Silver. I find myself being very disappointed in the NBA commissioner for a lot of things for a long time that I frankly think, I don't know if I'd use the word coasting, but I think he is eating off of how he handled the Donald Sterling situation for quite some time. There have been some good things, like play-in tournament has been a success. In-season NBA Cup, it's been a success, right? All-Star game has been a disaster. year after year after year after year. And I think part of it is like when you look at the rowdy kids and are always acting up, and you look at the parents and you're like, well, now I can see why. If you're letting them get away with that, I get those vibes with Adam Silver. And every once in a while, he just says something that leaves me scratching my head. And it happened again yesterday when he was asked about the league and how to consume it. And what do you say for your fans? And one of the big discussions that's happened throughout this offseason, when you talk about the media rights partners and the changes from TNT and Peacock and NBC are back. And now you got to stream on Amazon, and the average fan looking at it and saying, wait, and to be clear, it's not just the NBA. This is all sports, but looking at it and saying, I need this and this and this and this. And now I'm paying $90 a month just to stream my games here. And he was asked whether or not that's a problem. Do you have the exact quote? Like, we just remember the general tone of it.
Yeah. The exact quote that he had, let's see. Adam Silver was asked about the rising cost to watch a season of NBA games as a fan of a particular team, considering all of the games on either cable or streaming services. Silver said that there are a bunch of games that will go on free broadcast TV and that fans can also consume the league in other ways besides watching the game, noting that the NBA is a highlight league. Hearing the commissioner of your own sport say this sport is a highlight league, which again, he was saying like there are free ways to watch the game, but also we're more of a highlight league anyways. You got Instagram, you got TikTok, you can get the gist of it. What a disservice to the game of basketball for your commissioner to like just divulge your game down to that most basic form of it's a highlight league. Like, if you're only watching the highlights of games, you're missing so much of what makes that game. You're missing so much of what makes basketball. You can't get all the intricacies of it just from watching highlights.
It's dumb business. Right? Just to say you don't need to see all of it. You just need to see the small parts of it. Like, not only that, just watch the highlights, but also like, just get our product for free. Like, that's it. That's all you need to worry about. It's idiotic for the commissioner of his own league to take that approach. And I mean, it's like, Camille, if we were to go to McDonald's and say, guys, I got to tell you, I just, have you looked in the mirror with the rising food cost prices? Like, this is too much. I don't think I can afford to eat here anymore. And they tell me like, well, we give you the ketchup for free. Like, what's your problem?
Like, smell.
That's what Adam Silver is telling us.
Pretty much. And that's something I mentioned before, where it should not be difficult to watch your home team play. What Adam Silver is saying is that there are free games that you'll be able to see throughout the year, but that doesn't mean I'm be able to see my team for free. This is not like the 90s where I think about watching the Bucks on UPN and things of that sort, where it's like you can watch every game. I can watch
the Phoenix Suns if I live in Phoenix.
Right. Like, if you live in a market, you should be able to watch that team easily. It shouldn't require all of these different loopholes. And the only thing I get out of that is, well, you could watch the Lakers game for free on ABC this coming up here instead of watching your own team, or, hey, just go and watch the highlights. Like, that's disrespectful to the fans, I think, and something that a commissioner of a sport should not be parading. Like, fans should be able to watch their teams.
It's disrespectful to your players too, to tell your fans, you don't need to worry about how that player like, just look at his cool highlights. That's all that matters. That's what means he's a good player or a bad player. That's it.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. I couldn't believe he said that out loud in front of microphones for everybody to hear.
I mean, yeah, it is a problem. And I'm gonna be. I mean, here's the problem. They don't care. They got the bag.
They got the money already.
The talk about ratings and everything else, I'm going to be curious to see what happens. And it's also going to be tough to properly track. It's no longer an apples to apples comparison because of the streaming component. And even that, everything in terms of streaming is done with a veil of secrecy that we don't have the data. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the ratings are going to look like when you just have overall confusion, because that's the other thing is like, look, you need to get investment in your markets. You need to grow your sport. And the way that you do that is to spread the gospel of your sport and make it accessible for all fans. I mean, look, it's not to bring up the age-old comparison, but there's a number of factors. Part of it is that it is event watching for the NFL, but part of it is also, I know I can watch at least 3 games a week, and back in the day, 4 games a week, right? Like I got Fox, I got CBS, I can watch those 3 games that they're airing on Sunday, and I can see highlights of other games during those games. You don't necessarily have that with this league anymore. And not only that, you've made it confusing for fans to figure out, where is this game now? Like, just when you started to get in that pattern and know, well, it's a Friday, so it's ESPN, and Wednesday is ESPN, and wait, TNT is Tuesdays now? Like, just as we started to learn all that, now it's, everything's changing. NBC is these 2 days. Peacock is going to be this day. Amazon is these days. So, like, it has been a masterclass in a bad job by the commissioner of this sport in how to properly grow your sport and make it accessible for the most important people, your fringe fans. I mean, it's with any business. They got you and me. They got the listeners of Locked On Bucks and other Locked On shows, because we are basketball fans. We're fans of that team. So we're going to find ways to watch our team. What about the fan that hears about Steph Curry, or hears about this Anthony Edwards guy, or is interested in Giannis because of hearing his name during EuroBasket, or, last year, Victor Wembanyama? What about that fan that's not an NBA fan? And I want to see this guy. I have no idea how to consume this, and I had no idea it costs this much.
It's disappointing. And one of the last things I'll say here is just that you mentioned the NFL. Roger Goodell would never. He would never. There are a lot of things the NFL do where I'm like, come on, like, be better. But one thing the NFL does really well with their sport is make everything feel big. Of course, there are less games in the NFL that you have to deal with than the NBA, which needs to be pointed out. But even how networks cover the NFL is so much different than how the NBA tends to be covered. Like,
one time in the last year where I remember an off, like, player movement being the main story, and we benefited from it. That's the one time. It is the story in the NBA.
Yeah, it is. So it's like you have to do a better job of bigging up your own product. Like, if you don't have the care to put into it of like, we're going to treat this like it's a prize jewel and everyone needs to view it this way, no one else will. Like, if your media partners aren't actually helping to teach the game entertaining or just X's and O's, whichever way you want to go about it, you're not furthering the game in that way. And a lot of it is just, it's disappointing. Is the word I can use for it as somebody who loves watching basketball, who loves sports, because it's a unifier, reminds me of family and all the lessons learned from talking to my uncles about the game. And then seeing how it's covered at times, it's just like, it's like, I feel like in The Godfather, like, look what they've done to my beautiful boy. Like, look what they've done to my beautiful sport. Like, it's sad at times how they massacred my boy.
All right. A lot for you to leave your thoughts on. I'm very curious to see what we get here in the comments of today's show. But Clippergate and what happens next here, your take on that, your thoughts on what Adam Silver had to say and how you consume this league. We asked that question, how you consume Bucks games, in our survey, but I'm very curious about the rest. Like, do you view this as a highlights league? So leave your thoughts in the comments. I brought up the survey. We're going to get back and dip back into some of the results and questions that we asked you guys on tomorrow's show. Maybe a little more of a preview of that game between Turkey and Greece as well. I know we went long today and there was a lot of broad discussion, but in the case of Kawhi especially, it was a big story that we felt like needed to be touched on. So we'll have that on tomorrow's show. Be sure to leave your thoughts in your comments on those two topics for this show. We'll also point out next week, I forget, I got to ask Monas what day, either Tuesday or Wednesday, I believe. I think it's Wednesday. Next week, you can find me and Camille in the Here District with Marcus and Chris Johnson. We just taped the show the other day. So look for that. I just saw Dave Kane was the most recent guest on the show that came out yesterday. I already had a couple exchanges with him and Summer Dave growing out the beard now. But look for us on that show next week. That'll do it for today's show. Again, previewing Greece versus Turkey tomorrow, and more of your responses to the survey coming your way as we head into the weekend. For Camille, I'm Justin. Thanks to everybody for tuning in once again. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.